Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday morning webinar. I am Chloe Tetro, the coaching lead here with Ready Care. For today, we're going to be looking at the wild and wonderful world of portion sizes and seeing, are they really to blame? Is the story as simple as reducing portion sizes to look after overall health? So we'll be going through a little bit of the science involved, but not too much, and just basically trying to give a good all-round knowledge of what the story with portion sizes are. Are they as important as we tend to think that they are, or are things a little bit more nuanced? So hopefully you'll come away from this morning with a good understanding of what you can apply into your own life to look after your health. So we've all heard the advice, excuse me, watch your portion sizes if you want to lose weight. It's a very, very, very common one. And when I chat to people that are joining up on the program specifically for weight loss, oftentimes they will say in their first session, look, I know portion size is a big issue. And as we go through session by session, we start to see that maybe it's there are different tweaks there that can help a lot more. So portion control has long been blamed as the key to healthier diet, or really as the kind of blamed, might not be the right word, has been kind of touted as the key to it. And it is true that portion sizes have changed dramatically over the course of the last several decades. If you look at the average meal nowadays, it's 4 times larger than it was in the 1950s. And adults are about 26 pounds heavier on average than they would have been back then. I would say maybe even a little bit more than that. So in 2010, the average US citizen, for example, ate about 2,481 calories a day, which is roughly about 23% more than it would have been in the 70s. So big increase in these figures as you, no pun intended, as you go through the years. But is portion size the whole picture, or is it just an indicator of something else that's happening? Because if we look at those, we can say, okay, portion sizes have gotten bigger, people across the world have gotten bigger, following the kind of typical Western diet. Surely the portion sizes are to blame. So let's start there. So if there's no kind of questioning that they are an aspect of it. The whole picture is a little bit different insofar as the supersizing that's gone in the last few decades is more an indicator of the metabolism changes that have happened, the hormonal changes that have happened in people, and the actual ingredients of the food being different and triggering different mechanisms in the body. So it ignores the talk of just portion sizes, ignores what kind of foods that we're eating, which is really a lot more to do with weight indicators, which we'll explore a little bit further on here. So if the average American diet has shifted towards heavily processed, high carbohydrate foods, now I'm operating from data in this particular talk that's more influenced with American research, but really this can be transposed to UK, Ireland and Europe across the board. Nearly half of the calories that are consumed come from refined grains and flours like breads, pastries, grains overall, and added highly processed oils. So not your coconut oil, not your olive oil, but things like refined seed oils that the body just does not like. While the share of calories from things like fruit, vegetables, lean meats and dairy has declined hugely. So larger portions of low quality, highly processed foods are a total double whammy. So they pack loads of calories, but they don't satisfy our hunger for a long time. So that brings us to appetite regulation. And we look at why the calories in, calories out model isn't really as simple as it seems, and why it might be maybe a little bit outdated. So human appetite isn't just a matter of either willpower or an empty stomach, right? It's a very tightly regulated, complex hormonal system and signals in the brain. So when we eat, our digestive system releases hormones that tell our brain that we're full, so what we call our satiety signals. or when we haven't eaten, that we're hungry. So we need a little bit more energy. So 3 of the key players are ghrelin, which is often called our hunger hormone. And I think of it as the growling stomach, or ghrelin. And it's secreted by the stomach when it's empty. So it signals the brain to increase appetite. When you cut calories or skip meals, ghrelin levels rise, and that makes you feel ravenous. That's all the R sounds are to do with the hunger aspect. So leptin then, number 2, is a hormone produced by fat cells. So leptin is a long-term regulator that signals fullness and adequate energy stores. So in theory, higher leptin means less hunger. It's the thing that tells you that you're full, you've had enough. So in obesity, people often develop leptin resistance, where the brain stops responding to leptin signals. So sometimes overweight individuals can have high leptin levels and still feel hungry. So that hormone resistance makes sustained weight loss a lot more difficult. And then the third key player, which might be familiar to those of you that have read up about some of the injections out there for weight loss control, is GLP-1 and peptide YY. So GLP-1 and PYY. So these are gut hormones released after eating, especially protein-rich or fiber-rich meals, and they promote satiety and tell you to stop eating. So a lot of the injections out there on the market would be trying to replicate that particular process. Now, what you eat influences these hormones significantly. So high protein, lower carb diets have a distinct advantage, where studies show that increasing dietary protein while cutting back on refined carbohydrates boosts levels of satiety hormone and lowers hunger hormone. And that's something that I see time and time again. When people adopt a low carbohydrate diet, within the first few days, they'll start to comment on the fact that their appetite is reduced. They can go longer gaps of time without eating and feeling adequately full. They get fuller much quicker from their meals. And that's that regulation of these hormones starting to come into play. So a high protein intake will raise the levels of GLP-1, PYY, and what's called, if I can pronounce it here, cholecystokinin. So it's another fullness hormone, which I'm just going to call the other fullness hormone, because trying to pronounce that over and over, I will absolutely stumble on. So it promotes another fullness hormone while reducing ghrelin levels. So that hormonal shift translates into feeling fuller, more satisfied after meals. And people who replace some carbs in their diet with protein automatically will feel that drop in their hunger. And actually, they end up consuming far less calories. So we'll get into the calories out in a second, but on a low carbohydrate diet, people naturally undereat by about 400, and I have it further in the talk here for today, but by about 450, I think 450 calories, people naturally undereat a little bit because they're feeling more full, because they're feeling less hungry. So if you're having a eggs breakfast versus a bagel breakfast, or a toast breakfast, or something like a little bowl of porridge in the morning. So eggs are high in protein and healthy fats, whereas a high carbohydrate meal doesn't have that. So in a controlled study, scientists found that eggs have 50% higher satiety index than grain-based breakfasts. So what does that mean? It basically means that you are going to be fuller for longer. You're also utilizing what the food is breaking down as in the makeup of your body. So you know how people say you are what you eat? Your body is made of proteins and it's made of fats. So if you're trying to build a stronger, healthier version of you, give yourself the core brick ingredients that will create a foundation for a healthier version of yourself. Having just the likes of toast, grains, rice, pastas, potatoes, even though they're tasty, let's call it what it is, these don't make up the foundation connective tissues, bones, eyeball, brains that you need to have these type of foods in the body. So in a longer trial, dieters who ate eggs for breakfast lost 65% more weight than those who ate a bagel, toast breakfast, or something that had the same amount of calories in it. So when both followed a reduced calorie diet, the people with low carbohydrate lost more weight than the people with high carb low fat. And the high carb, low fat is everywhere out there. Thankfully, a bit less, actually, to be honest, in the last few years than it used to be. But I remember growing up, low fat was the way to go. You know, if prior to getting trained in things, that's what people would tend to aim for if they were trying to lose weight. So why calories in, calories out isn't the entire story. So for decades, the dominant paradigm in weight loss was CICO, C-I-C-O, calories in, calories out model. Now, that conventionally will say that as long as you burn more calories than you eat, you will lose weight, no matter what the calories are, right? So if you'd a cream egg, in theory, the amount of calories in that won't matter, and will help you lose weight if it's equal or less than a whole food meal, right? And, you know, when you put it into everyday tried and tested experiential scenarios, it starts to make a little bit less sense, right? From a purely thermodynamic standpoint, that's technically true that if you have less calories, you will lose weight, right? But this model is totally overly simplistic and outdated as a guide for that real world application, because it assumes that the human body behaves like a static robotic machine that is constantly the same. You know, you can predict with a very static output. So in reality, the body is more like a very dynamic adaptive system that's interplaying an awful lot more. So it responds to different types of calories in different ways. Now, we're human beings, we hate complexity. So unfortunately, it's easier to stick to ground rules. Calories in, calories out is easy to remember. It makes sense on paper. We shy away from things being a lot more complex, alas. They usually are. So firstly, the calories outside, so the energy that you burn isn't fixed, right? So it changes based on how much and what you eat. So when you cut calories suddenly, your body might compensate by burning fewer calories. So your metabolism will slow down. So this is also the concept of the thermic effect of food. Different nutrients require different amounts of energy to digest and metabolize. You are going to burn more energy burning off specific foods. So protein has a very high thermic effect. It's about 20 to 30% of its calories are burnt off just in the digestion process. So carbohydrates then 5%. So that means that if you eat 100 calories of chicken versus 100 calories of Coca-Cola, your body is going to expend a lot more energy processing the chicken. And as I've mentioned, that chicken is going to break down into what's called amino acids, which are the building blocks of healthy hair, nails, skin, connective tissues. The soda is not going to break down into anything but a surge in your blood sugar levels, which is going to cause you more problems down the road. So that's why there's you can hear a hint of bitterness in my calories in, calories out view of the world, because I think with the best of intentions, because that's what people have, is they're told, here's a very easy to follow rule, just look at the calorie content in something, and somebody with the best of intentions can look at the back of a packet on their lunch break and say, well, this only has 80 calories. This really processed diet bar that's promising me energy, that's promising me the world and loads of fiber. And this pre-packed salad with loads of different foods, oh gosh, that has 250 calories. I couldn't possibly have that, right? So that's where an awful lot of the difficulties start to come in, because your metabolism then is running on fuel that is doing it potentially greater harm in the long run. So the net calorie gain from high protein foods is naturally lower than from high sugar foods, even if the portion size and calorie count are identical. Calories in, calories out alone doesn't account for that difference in how we break down these foods. If something is hitting us directly, that 80 calories of sugar, bam, that's in our system, versus our system has to work and expend energy. I'm doing this, I'm like the churning stomach. Our system has to work to break down protein heavy foods. This basically gets our fat burning processes up. Secondly, The SECO model fails to consider how calories affect hunger and satiation. So back to the two lads that we were chatting about, or ghrelin or leptin, a while ago. The assumption was that a calorie is a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. It doesn't matter where it's from and, what type of food it is. If you're gaining weight, it's just because you are lacking the willpower to eat fewer calories. Doesn't matter how hungry and tired and poorly functioning and stressed and poor digestion you are. If you're eating more calories, that's a problem with your willpower. Not the case. Absolute rubbish. But we know that what you eat is a lot more important and can drive overeating and undereating. So if you have, which was demonstrated in research, if you have one group of adults on ultra-processed diet, things like chicken nuggets, things like refined breads, sugary snacks, donuts, rubbish foods, foods that have about 150 ingredients when you look at the back of it, and another group on a whole food unprocessed diet. So that means single ingredient foods, as in here's a vegetable, here's a fruit, here is some meat. There's not 100 ingredients on something, it's just the food itself. So both diets had the same amount of total calories, sugar, fat, protein, and carbs available. They're very careful to make sure that they're 1-to-1. Just the source and processing of the foods were different. So the people on the ultra-processed diet ended up eating about 508 calories more per day without even realizing it. And in just 2 weeks, they gained about 2 pounds per week of body weight. So those on the unprocessed diet lost that under 2 pounds in 2 weeks. So the people could eat as much or as little as they wanted, and the processed food eaters just kept eating more. So the food engineered to be hyper palatable, very tasty, easy to chew, low in fiber, didn't trigger fullness in the same way. So people ate larger portions automatically. This shows that all calories are not equal in practice. And again, if we're to throw that into real world scenario, if I give you 800 calories of cream eggs to follow as a protocol for 2 weeks versus 800 calories of whole food. Well, I mean, that's not going to be a lot of food anyway. Let's say 1,800 of both. Common sense will tell you that you're going to have very, very different results there. So it's starting to unpick that a little bit. Now, another huge weakness, and one that I talk about quite a bit on these talks, to do with the calories in, calories out model, is that it doesn't address the hormonal environment that determines what your body does with the calorie it consumes. So we have a calorie. Where is it going? What is it being utilized for? It's not just here's a calorie and I'm putting on weight. It's nothing like that. These are all utilized in the body. So the carbohydrate insulin model, CIM instead of CICO, of obesity offers a much, much more complete perspective of this. So researchers like Dr. David Ludwig at Harvard argues that it's not just overeating that's making us fat. It may also be that a poor diet makes us fat, and that in turn drives us to overeat. So how would that work? So the idea is that diets high in refined carbohydrates, the same old players that I always talk about, they cause repeated spikes in the hormone, ding, 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 insulin. So insulin's job is to help cells take up glucose or sugar from the blood. It also signals the body to store excess energy as fat. So insulin is the messenger that is telling your body to store excess energy as fat. It is the thing that is telling you to store fat. I'm underlining it because oftentimes when people are very used to the low fat model, the insulin geared models of weight loss just don't make sense at all, because very simplistically, it makes sense in a kind of old rhetoric sort of way to say that if you eat less fat, you will become less fat. But actually, it is to do with the messages that your food are giving your body. Fat in and of itself will not tell your body to store fat, which I get is kind of a jujitsu move on the usual thought process out there. Whereas high insulin, that's exactly what it does. And high insulin levels come from an overconsumption of grain-based foods, high sugar fruits, rice, potatoes, pastas, bananas, beers, ciders. They're the kind of main players, the white and beige foods out there. So they are the thing that's driving up your hormone insulin, and that is telling your body to store fat. So when insulin is elevated, your body is primed to store fat and not burn it. You might notice that there's difficulty starting with your insulin if you're starting to see your weight creep up and up and up and up. Nothing in your life, diet, or exercise routine has changed drastically, and you're putting it down to quote unquote the middle-age spread, which doesn't exist, right? That is your body getting more and more and more resistant to an overabundance of carbohydrates in your diet. It's doing its best, and over time, it's slowing down and struggling and struggling and struggling. So eating a high carb, high sugar meal will cause that rapid spike in your blood sugar levels. It's also going to trigger your hunger and your cravings. So insulin plays absolute havoc with our good friends leptin and ghrelin. So if you see up, down, I'm hungry, I'm starving, I'm not full, oh my God, I'm so full, but now I'm starving all over again. Insulin is disrupting those signals. So it's very, very important to look at the carbohydrate insulin model, because it's still respecting the laws of physics. You can't gain weight without excess calories, but it suggests a different cause of the effect, because of course, if you're constantly hungry, you're going to eat more. If you're constantly in a state where metabolically your body is telling your body to store fat, you're going to store more fat. Instead of just overeating causes you to get fat, it is telling you that getting fat due to fat storage hormones like insulin causes you to overeat. Now, oftentimes 3 days is all it takes when you reduce carbohydrate-based foods to start to see a drastic difference in your appetite. Once your appetite is following the signals of what your body needs, the energy that it needs, things get a lot smoother, things get a lot clearer. So food quality over quantity. Advantages. So low carb diets have shown promising effects time and time and time again as outperforming low fat diets. They always do. So 15 to 30% of daily calories, if that's coming from protein foods, that's going to be even better, because remember, protein-rich foods, that's your eggs, meat, fish, poultry, if you're veggie, things like tofu, tempeh, and some of the corn substitutes like minced chicken pieces, and I actually think even Beyond Burger, even though I'm putting the little star caveat that that's quite a processed food, but beggars can't be choosers. There's lots of different protein options out there for vegetarians, but do just check that they're low carb, because oftentimes processed food tend to bring up carbohydrates as well. So making sure that you're getting a lovely, lovely source of protein, and aiming for, this is a rule of thumb, if you aim to have in grams what your body weight is in kg, right? So let's say you weigh 82 kgs. Try to aim for 82 grams of protein per day. That's going to be a fantastic way to get your body's thermostat up. It's going to be working really, really hard to burn off the proteins going through the process. You're going to have fantastic hair, fantastic nails, fantastic teeth, skin, the whole shebang. So aiming for that as priority is going to be absolutely brilliant. Keeping your carbohydrates low. So again, grain type foods, it doesn't mean that you never ever have to have them again. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not advocating for zero carbohydrates, because quite frankly, you don't need to do that. You can still enjoy the odd jacket potato or the odd potato in any form whatsoever. Mash is my guilty pleasure sometimes, or duck fat roasties once in a while. But it's not that you have to eliminate them altogether. It's just taking into account, if weight loss is something that you're looking to do, try it out. Try cutting them way, way, way back and seeing, okay, if you're to have very little potatoes, sweet potatoes, and focus instead on above ground vegetables. So anything that grows above the ground, happy days, work away. Remember, it's not about portion size. You can keep eating until you're full. If you're eating above ground vegetables and proteins, you do not need to go hungry. Adding in specific good fats is going to help your body. So don't be afraid of fats. all of this basically is trying to send out the message that what you eat is a lot more important than how much you consciously eat, right? So if you're switching out the ingredients that are getting in the way of your body functioning well, i.e. very, very high carb foods that are messing up your hormones, messing up your hunger signals, satiation signals, and all the rest of the shebangs that go along with it. If that is regulated, you can have a gigantic plate. I often say that to clients and they'll say, gosh, I'm very hungry. And I say, well, maybe eat some more. Because essentially, if you're going from eating 2 eggs in the morning, thinking that, you can't, that there was the fallacy going around for ages that you can't have more than 2 eggs because your cholesterol levels will be through the roof, blah, 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 which is nonsense, by the way. This particular way of eating is also utilized for people that are looking to target blood lipid dysregulation. So it's only going to help. So if you want to, if you have your 2 eggs in the morning, you say, geez, I'm a bit hungry by lunchtime, have a third one, have a fourth one, have an omelette, add some ham and cheese and the whole shebang into it. Whole shebang is make a big, being used quite a bit today. Anyway, so I am digressing. Hope you found this helpful. Any questions and comments, please do pop them in. Remember that portion size is only part of the story. What is making up the portion size is a lot more important. If you're somebody with a big appetite, happy days. Having loads of veg in a stir fry with some chicken or lovely steak is not going to negatively impact as long as the carbohydrates are kept nice and low. Try it out for a week. Tell me how you get on with it. Usually by the 3rd day, your appetite is going to regulate because your lovely hormones are going to start regulating. Your leptin, your ghrelin, and your GLP-1. And by the 4th or 5th day, you should start to see a difference on the scale if you're somebody that weighs themselves. And you should start to see your energy levels come up as well. So hope you found this helpful and have a lovely rest of your day. And I will see you next week. Bye now.